Hello, and welcome to A Day with the Car Driver. I'm Day.
And I'm Scamp.
Why do you sound so...
Because you yelled it right into the microphone. You went all the ways up here.
You look grim. Maybe even Grimgar. Folks, it's the winter of 2016.
Winter 2016 season. And there are some...
There's some really good stuff. There's also a lot of poop.
No, it's actually quite a small season, all things considered. Because a lot of the stuff is shorts.
I like shorts.
Yes, you say that every single time.
What's wrong with that?
But we'll jump straight in with, because this will probably be quite a shorter podcast than usual.
Shouwa Era Rakugo Shinjuu, which it has been released in the West as Descending Stories, probably because there's no real way to...
translate that.
Yes, because it is basically Shouwa Era theatrical love suicide.
Yes, it's like... half the words have no translation because they are direct Japanese things.
Yeah, Rakugo and Shinjuu.
And Shouwa.
Well, because Shinjuu's a...
lover's suicide.
Yeah. And I would say it's fairly... I mean, it's not that you don't see that elsewhere, but it's also... there's cultural specificity to that. Anyway, this was a good show.
This show is incredible. This is one of the absolute just highlights of the entire decade. What an anime.
This show's great. It starts off with you meet the characters. There was you know what, they did a pre-air episode that was double. No, you know what, the first episode was double length.
Yeah.
And you start out and you're meeting the characters further in the future than the story actually is.
It's in the 60s, I think?
Yes, it's at least in the 60s. And you meet, there's this guy, he's just gotten out of prison. He used to be involved in organized crime, but while he was in prison, he got to see a Rakugo performance by a master of the craft.
Rakugo.
And he decides that he wants to become a Rakugo performer. That's his goal when he gets out of prison.
Rakugo performer, you probably may have even seen this in other anime. It's where one guy or lady nowadays, used to not be the case, will come out on stage, sit on a cushion in front of an audience with a fan in their hand, and then they'll tell a story. Yeah. And
it's basically one-person theater.
Yeah. Its closest thing, honestly, to compare it to is stand-up comedy, but it's most of the time not necessarily comedic.
Yeah, there's comedy routines, but there's also, dramatic ones and horror stories too.
Yes.
Anyway, so the guy's like, I want to be a performer. I'm going to go find the guy I saw, and I'm going to ask to be his apprentice. And the guy he saw is a cranky old man who's like, fuck off, kid.
Yeah.
And then we go back in the past.
Yes.
And we meet the cranky old man when he was but a wee child. And with
a limp. Yes,
and he had been born into a geisha house.
Yes.
And he has been basically, it's gotten to the point where he's getting too old to be in the geisha house because he's learned some of the dancing and the different types of arts in the geisha house, but he can't stay there because he's a boy.
Yes.
So he ends up getting apprenticed to a Rakugo performer.
And this is set in the late 20s, I think.
Yeah, it's probably the very late or very... You know what? I think it's probably the very late 20s.
Yeah.
Based on the fact that, subsequent events.
The war gets mentioned.
Yes, but also neither he nor the man who ends up being his childhood friend end up fighting in the war. And while in his case it's his health, in his friend's case I think he was too old.
Oh, okay.
Actually it doesn't bear too much thought because now I'm thinking too deeply about...
It kind of glossed over. Anyway,
and so he's apprenticed and he's learning, and then while he is at his, while he's being trained, a little snot-nosed brat who's basically a street kid ends up being taken on as an apprentice as well.
Yes.
Because this kid is a huge fan of Rakugo, and he's like, this is what I'm going to do. And he's the sort of kid who's really good at not letting people say to him, hey kid, you're dirt, fuck off.
Yes.
And then, so the first season covers their coming of age and their early adulthood and them becoming professionals in their own right, but also their interrelations with other people in the Rakugo world, and a woman who is training to be a geisha.
And more bigger than that is the evolving society around them.
Yes, and sort of the limitations even as it does evolve in... These are characters who... First, three main characters, the two Rakugo performers and the geisha. Two of them are significantly hampered in what they would actually want out of life by their surrounding society.
Yeah.
It's definitely heavily implied that our primary lead is possibly gay.
Oh, yeah.
And is probably in love with his friend. It's never concretely stated, but it's very heavily implied.
But the friend, meanwhile, I mean, it's fairly clear both of them have depressive fits. One of them's alcoholic, the other one is just a misery guts.
Yeah. One of them's much more overtly self-destructive.
Yes.
And then the geisha, she comes in the story because she met their what would you call them?
Sensei.
Their teacher in what's it called?
Brothel.
Manchukuo.
Oh.
It's even worse than that in some ways.
Uh-huh.
He meets her. He has gone over to entertain the troops, and he meets her because she's over there working, and it's not entirely clear in what capacity, but it's definitely implied she probably is working in something that is sex work adjacent. And that is how she meets their master and comes into their lives, because she comes back with them. And ultimately you realize that she probably did not come from a great background, and she has ended up in these lines of work because she's trying to survive. And what she would really like out of life is basically stability.
Yes.
And she is not able to, because of her unsavory background, it's difficult for her to find something she can, and also there's a lack of jobs for a woman that are not.
But even when the world starts changing around her and like women are suddenly getting rights, she also can't handle that either. She can't handle a changing world.
Well, she wants stability, but because she grew up in a world where stability was you get married, you have a kid, and your husband works, which, by the way, is still the vast majority of what was the case for women at this time, even after the war.
Yeah.
Because that's what she grew up with, she's not capable of really going beyond that.
Yeah.
She can only see her salvation in a home setting, in a domestic setting. But I think, too, if it's true that she herself didn't come from a great background, she might also simply desire something she didn't experience growing up as well.
What's the thing that says, like, the two main characters, there's, apart from them both being self-destructive, there's not much.
Actually, they're really all self-destructive.
Her especially. The two main guys, there's very little, they're like deliberately polar opposites. One of them is very, stiff upper lip, very proper about his act. There's like one scene where when they're both young men, they're both quite attractive. And like where he's tending tables at a bar and all these ladies going, yeah, look at him, he's so proper. Look at his slender hands kind of thing.
Yeah. And the other guy is much messier in his approach.
Serial womanizer, shall we say.
Oh, God, yes.
But so the only thing, apart from their self-destructive attitude, is their love of the art.
Oh, yeah.
They're both...
But they also are very different as performers.
Yes.
And in fact, one of them, his life starts going downhill because of a combination. He's drinking too much, but he also... His desires to...
reform the art.
Yes, and sort of break past the orthodoxies of it. Set him against a lot of the people who are in the Rakugo world. And two, they are in an art that is slowly in decline. Especially after the war.
It starts dying. And it's fairly clear that, like... So there's the one guy who, like, he wants to reform it. Honestly, I think the other guy wants to reform it as well, but he's more eternally depressive. He can't believe that it can change. He, like, there's a second season.
Well, I mean, he also thinks that there's no way that his life could ever become something other than him being miserable, like, 70% of the time.
Yes, and he's almost like, I want the art form to die with me because...
Not almost. He explicitly states it in the second season.
I just want the art form to die with me because...
I'll take it down with me.
I'll take it down with you, but it's not even like he wants to take it away from other people. He's like, the world doesn't care about this, so I'm just going to let it die. Mm-hmm. Like, whenever this... So, like, he wants to save it, but particularly, I mean... it kind of spoiled in the first episode, but when his friend dies, that to him was like the sign of like, this guy wanted to change it, and he was taken away from me. That is the world telling me, I cannot be happy. I cannot bring about change.
And one of the things that I find interesting in this, and something you don't see so much of in anime, is that there's a lot of depiction of the links between popular entertainment and the Yakuza and the criminal underworld, because the primary patrons for the theaters end up being Yakuza bosses.
Yes, I remember that.
And, so they spend a lot of time around these folks who are considered less savory elements. More so in the second season, because that's at a point where the art form is really in decline. So the only people who are really willing to put down much money for it by that point are... Well, they're gangsters.
Or they're old people.
Yeah. And the old people don't have much money.
Yeah, but that's because it's like they had the one old-fashioned...
But even in the first season, you see where, like, the geisha houses are very much getting to be on the fringes of society, and how much, connections there are between the geisha and the entertainment world, and... there is an older lady who she runs a geisha house, and we realize, is the lover of a much older, well, not much older than her. They're both older, and she is the lover or the ex-lover of one of the Yakuza bosses.
Yeah. There is one thing I really, really like about this is they will show the entire Rakugo performance.
Oh yeah, it's not partial performances.
No, they show the full thing.
It's so good.
It's so good, but what's really impressive about it is so this director, I had my eye on him for a while because he did.
You picked him out.
I picked him out. Yeah, no, really, it was Sankareya, which is a really not that great manga, but the directing in that was incredible. I was like, this guy clearly has a lot of talent. This team behind him, they're ex-Shaft people.
Yeah.
And I think they're like a Rose and Maiden thing, and then this came out. And it's not like they do some like wild imagery. It's not really shafty though, but it's the attention to detail in facial expressions and like body movements during the performances that really sells the show as a whole.
Excellent scene composition is how I would put it. Yeah. Now, do you remember what the studio was?
Brain? No.
No, this is Studio Dean.
Yes, because Dean were on like a weird upward trend right here.
I've always pointed out that Dean has always had a few diamonds. They did Maria Samagami Teru, for example.
Yeah, but that's not well animated, whereas this is.
Yes, it is. It's not stunning looking, but it is good. It is the right visuals for the sort of story it is telling there.
Yeah.
You only saw like 6 episodes of that.
6 episodes is a lot.
6 episodes out of, let's see, how many
4
total?
seasons, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Don't give me that. This show's great. It's on Crunchyroll. Go watch it.
It is very much, I mean, you can probably tell from our conversation, it's definitely, it's not very anime.
It's fantastic.
But it is,
this is the sort of show I'd like to have more of.
It is a historical drama, and it is excellent. I will say, the ending of season 2 is bad.
So, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's bad. There is a particular element which is troubling.
With the troubling puts it like, it almost destroys the show for me.
We want people to watch it? Yes. Thank you. It's just, there was one thing that is very Josei.
Yes.
And the thing is, to me, it's presented in a fashion where it's possible to ignore it, but it was really like, did we really have to do that?
Yeah.
But the thing is, there's so many other elements of the ending that weren't bad.
Yeah.
You have like...
The whole fire and the whole fire scene and so on. That was the
I'm
episode
talking
before.
About the very last episode
Oh,
where
yeah.
you have, you finally have the performance by one of the characters who has clearly been interested in Rakugo for ages, but was letting society tell them no.
Yeah, that was quite good.
You know, and you see, like, the grandkids of some of the characters who, we saw them when they were babies, and now we're seeing them as, they're adults and, well, they're older teenagers, and the degree to which they're interested or not interested in Rakugo themselves.
And society, again, because the whole thing is about Japanese society as much as anything.
Yeah.
It's a really fantastic piece.
It's good. You should watch it.
So that's...
Anyway, that was the season.
That was the
season. Just kidding.
Okay.
There's a few other things.
The biggest thing this season, actually, was Erased, which was the show...
Speaking of bad endings. I just remember people being really angry about the ending.
We'll get to that. Erased, if you hadn't heard about it, there was a murder of... This guy had this weird ability to, like, foresee... Like, he saw if someone was going to die, he would, like, get this vision, go back in time, and be able to prevent the death. And then his mum dies, and then he's sent back, for some reason, all the ways back to...
When he was a kid.
When he was a kid, he's like, I guess my mum died due to something that happens around here.
Also, there was a little girl who was a classmate of his at that same time who disappeared.
Yes.
And so this is before she disappeared.
Yeah, and so he's trying to, like... He's living his child life trying to figure out, how do I prevent all these things? How to prevent this other kid from dying? Could I have saved her? Also, why did my mom die? That was weird. I
also think there's an implication that his power, while he has used it for good in the past, it's also kind of prevented him from living a normal life.
Yes.
Because he's working in a convenience store, and he's in his, like, mid-late 20s.
Yeah.
And the other people working in the convenience store are much younger.
Yeah. Yeah, there's implication that he hasn't got his life sorted out. But yeah, so, like, there's the first half of the show, which I think is really good, which is mostly the story of him kind of reconnecting with the girl who disappeared as a child, and, like, just, it's kind of kids doing Stand By Me type stuff. You know, kind of, you know Stand By Me?
No.
That's the one the kids working on the railroad, we're going to go find a dead body.
No. When I hear Stand By Me, I think of Train in Vain. By The Clash.
It's very much that kind of coming of age, losing of innocence as children, but while also reinforcing the strength of friendship and things like that. It's quite a good story. The second half of the show is pretty bad. It it has a murder mystery that's not very good, and then it has the ending. I think a couple of weeks ago we were gas-bagging about...
Well, so I only watched a few episodes, but I remember very, very clearly that this was an ending that it wasn't simply that people were disappointed, but people were actively angry.
This is the worst ending of the decade. Like, there is no contest in my eyes at this, from how high it was to how low it went.
God, you just said that Rakugo was almost destroyed by its bad ending.
Rakugo, I felt like the ending kind of like, it put a knife in a character that I didn't want them to put a knife into. It's like, no, why? Please don't imply that. But, like, this one was just so aggressively stupid, convoluted, destroying characters, destroying the whole plot. Like, there was no way, like, what was the one that we were talking about that was really bad the other day? Roka, Seven Braves, that had a really bad ending. Like, I've just seen Roka fairly recently and was like, this is the worst ending of the decade. And then
but you know what, I think you can also, I feel like the Roka ending is possible to ignore.
Yeah, the Roka ending's bad, but it's like, if they made another season, it's like, okay, fine, we'll carry on then. Erase is like, they do this ending, you're like, well, that's ruined everything. I do think the first half of the show is still good, but yeah, that ending is...
Yeah, I just remember people were, like, incandescently angry. Just so pissed off.
It's one of those ones that the more you thought about it, like, it was bad at the start, and then you kept thinking about it, it's like, so this also means this, and this also destroys this part of the show that I liked. It was just the whole thing. And it didn't need to be done either. It was like, we don't care, You
know, since, actually, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit on so we usually write up a document of the shows we want to mention prior to doing the podcast. And I'm going to skip over a couple of things, though, because we have been talking about a couple of shows that were more serious shows.
Yeah.
And also did have flaws.
Yes.
Like, again, I think up until that final frame in Rakugo.
Yeah, I think honestly, like season 1 Rakugo is near perfect. Maybe some pacing issues, but other than that.
Grimgar, a fantasy of ash and
sorrow.
No. It was like a fantasy of ash and something or other. Anyway.
I think it might have just been a Grimgar fantasy of ash, but anyway.
Yeah, maybe. No, I think it was Ash and Memories, maybe.
Anyway.
This is an isekai show, except none of the characters actually remember anything prior to waking up in this alternate world, and they don't have an awareness that they are in an alternate world, because that's the degree to which they have no idea what's going on. And then, this is one of the more serious ones. However, I would contrast it with more recent examples of serious isekai in that it's not... It's much more understated in its approach of, hey, this is actually serious.
Yeah.
There's no...
It's low stakes.
There's no egregious suffering going on. There's no torture porn occurring. You don't have a sense that the show is jamming your face in. Yeah, well, they thought it was going to be so much fun, but you know what? They didn't take it seriously, and now they've all been raped to death. Goblin Slayer.
Yes.
Grimgar, so... These folks all wake up in this world, and they end up going into the nearest town, and the nearest town's like, oh, more people have appeared. And this has apparently been going on a lot. And it's like, okay, well, we're going to give you a little bit of resources to start with, and you need to figure out what you're going to do.
They do the MMO fantasy RPG thing of, like, you all get classes, and you all form a group, and you go kill goblins.
Yes, but our group that we end up following is people who... weren't as skilled, and the implication is they've ended up together more out of them being the leftovers. They're not terrible at what they're doing, but they're not very good, and they have cohesion issues. And they go out and they're like, oh, hey, we're gonna kill a goblin, this is gonna be great. But it actually just turns out to be miserable, not in we're all being killed sense, but in a killing something's horrible.
Yeah.
And, they end up taking out a goblin, and it's just...
And then they throw up.
Yeah. They're really disturbed by the experience.
It's one of those kind of shows.
And then a couple episodes subsequent to that, they're starting to get better, and they're feeling kind of confident about themselves, and like, we can do it, we can make it. And then they screw up, and someone dies.
Yeah.
And
spoiler warning.
The rest of the show is essentially them dealing with the fallout of that. This is a show that's very much about grief. I would argue that it is unusual for anime in that it is a genuinely thoughtful examination of grief and how different people deal with it and work through it. And I say unusual because... while there are a lot of shows that deal with death, I don't think that most spend as much time examining grief specifically. I really liked it. I also think it is deeply flawed.
Yeah, I think the flaws were too much for me. Some of the characters were just...
One of the characters is horrible, and he is just beyond redemption, and the show wants him to operate as... It's sort of like the show can't entirely decide what it wants out of him, because sometimes he's used as more comic relief, but it's not funny. And other times you get the feeling that, they are trying to depict someone whose way of dealing with grief is they get angry and they lash out at other people.
Yeah.
But it doesn't totally work because he's a bit too cruel without being genuinely apologetic about it to other people in the group. However, I still really liked this show. I thought it was fantastic. I just wish it didn't have the flaws.
Yeah, the flaws were too much for me, ultimately. I did watch it with you, but I think you ended up watching the end of it by yourself.
Yeah, you dropped around episode 5, maybe?
No, it was like 8 or 9, actually.
No, I know we weren't that deep in the show.
No, because I saw the new character who joined their group,
Yeah, but she joins in, like, episode 5.
Anyway.
So that was Grimgar.
There were a couple of... I just jumped to movies.
Okay.
Because we had... Well, first of all, there was the Kizumonogatari movie that started here, which had been not rumored, but like been promised for years. Still haven't seen them, so we'll talk about them when I see them, because this is the first of 3.
Are you going to see them before you get through this project?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Ooh, you better start working, my
dear.
dear.
I should.
The other one is Dokusei Classmates, which is a fairly well-regarded BL adaptation.
Quite primo for a movie.
By, what's the author? I can picture her, because I've read some of her other works too. Vertical put out a bunch of her works in English. Asumiko... Well, anyway, this is an adaptation of one of her works. It's okay. It's a little slower than I'd like it to be. There is also... The premise is that there's these 2 high school boys, and they meet because one of the boys is trying to practice singing, because there's going to be some school event that they have to sing at as a class. And one of the boys comes across the other in a classroom, he's trying to practice, and then... that's how they meet. And, they're sort of opposites. One's a little bit more of a, not punk quite, but less serious about school sort of kid.
Delinquent.
Not...
He doesn't...
That's not right.
His tie is always down here.
And his hair's messy.
Yes.
Whereas the other one is more serious about school.
His tie's up here.
Yes, no one can see what you're doing. So that's how they meet, and they become close, and they fall in love. And that's pretty much what it is.
I think it's just the excitement about it is a primo BL, which does not exist. But didn't exist for, like, several years.
Or just a more serious, not trashy approach.
Yeah.
Because we have seen, at this point in time, it seemed like your more serious, not trashy ones had kind of disappeared for adaptations.
Yeah.
But, it's okay. It's a bit on the slow side, though, and there is a thread of the story which involves a teacher that I really disliked, because I really am not interested in teachers who are creeping on their students. Then we turn around and pretend that the teacher actually isn't a creep. So
okay.
I didn't like that. It's not a long movie. I think it was only like 80 minutes, 85 minutes.
Yeah. So there were actually a ton of shorts this season.
I like shorts.
Yes, dear.
Did you say this? Didn't I say that?
Yes, you did already.
Okay.
You say it every single time. Shorts here. And I think, like, this has been a direction anime been moving in for a while. But, like, this season there were a bunch that were actually, like, quite good.
Although you say moving in that direction, but I'd say that subsequent to... I think it's dropped off again. I don't think there are that many good shorts these days.
There was one recently about it. I just realised, as I've said this, the first season of Dagashi Kashi
was not a short.
Was not a short, you're right.
Yeah. I figured you were accidentally
grouping
that in.
Season 2 kind of changed to a short, which I think suited it better. Dagashi Kashi is the one about set in a small town, not even small town, like
it's a village,
rural village, old school sweet shop, and how it's going out of business, kind of having trouble.
Well, no, the business isn't doing well.
Oh, it isn't doing well. Season 2,
and the kid who's supposed to be the presumed heir to it doesn't seem that
not into it because he wants to draw manga instead. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, absolute insane lady with like the most bug-eyed eyes comes in and is all like, "You have to make sweets because
sweets are life.
Sweets are life.
Sweets are justice."
And then the rest of the show is just her talking about how amazing all these old school traditional Japanese sweets are. Not traditional.
Well, it's not all traditional. So there are definitely some traditional confections that she discusses, but she's also, it's really just a world, not world tour, but it's a grand tour of Japanese candy making.
Yeah. And we're not talking like traditional Japanese sweets like the ones that they make in not Honey and Clover.
Marsh comes in like a lion.
Yeah, you know, they make like the real traditional Japanese sweets.
Yeah.
It's not them, it's stuff, you know, like gumballs and...
whistle candy.
Yeah, just like the real cheap shit that you get for like 10p as a kid kind of thing. Well, not nowadays, but yeah, that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Rainbow dust, stuff that's basically just pure sugar, things like that. And it's basically her reveling in kind of childlike enthusiasm of what these sweets are, explaining the history behind them.
So you know what it made me think of?
What?
So there's an author, Steve Almond, an American author, who wrote a book called Candy Freak. Because he apparently was a candy freak. And so he wrote this book and he was looking at older school candies in the United States that, you know, not the national type brands, but things like Necco wafers or Malomars. I remember one of the candies he talked about, it has a very limited distribution regional. It's a regional candy because it can't be transported by air. It can't survive the pressure changes.
Weird.
Yeah, or Sky Bars. Things that just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And other thing to note about this show, very horny.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a weird, funny little thing. I actually quite enjoyed it.
See, I feel bad saying after you said really horny, because it's going to sound wrong, but one of my favorite aspects of this show is the dynamic between Hotaru, who is the candy nut who shows up, and the lead's dad, because they're both candy nuts.
Yes.
And they try to come up with these schemes to get the son to want to continue the business.
Yeah.
So, and it's just... They have a great dynamic, and there's nothing creepy about it. He's not being weird to her at all. She doesn't have any weird feelings for him. It's just they're a pair of candy fanatics that just really want to make sure that this continues.
Well, when we say quite horny, we're talking about things like they've got these giant like wafer bars that they eat, and she's like, "No, you must feed it to me," and then ties her hands behind her back, puts on a blindfold. It's like, "I will guess the flavor," and then he's like looking at her as he's shoving giant tube-shaped pink wafers into her mouth, and going like, "This is pretty okay." It's a horny show,
and everybody had the wrong best girl.
Oh God, the show didn't understand.
Not the show.
No, the show
it
itself.
Was the fandom.
Yes. The one with the Moe Fang is not the best girl. The best girl is Hotaru. Don't pretend it's the Moe Fang girl. I like this friend who had the like shark teeth and always wore sunglasses.
Oh God. Or the goldfish in the bowl, and the goldfish is huge.
And it's CG.
And it's CG, and nothing else in the show is CG. Yeah, it was a fun show.
Season 2 is actually still quite fun as well. The problem is, not when it doesn't work, it's the most boring shit. But I have a Dagashi Kashi t-shirt.
Yeah.
Which we got in Japan.
Who found that for you in Japan?
It is an extra large. It barely fits me. I wore it to the shop the other day and forgot about it until I was like, I got a funny look from the lady at the cashier.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. That's really funny.
The show is actually quite big.
I found it in a one of the resale stores in Akihabara.
Yes.
On a rack. I was looking for a Love Live t-shirt and I didn't find it, but I did find that.
This show was actually really successful in Japan. There's a lot of doujins.
I'm not surprised.
Not surprised. Anyway, that was Dagashi.
It's trash.
But that wasn't the short. So the actual shorts, and this is the best one, was Galko-chan.
I would. Okay, there were 3 of these I liked a lot, though.
What's the other ones then?
I really liked Sekko Boys.
Yes.
I love Sekko Boys. And I also really enjoyed This Boy's a Professional Wizard.
Okay. So Sekko Boys is, there's a new idol group, and the idols are busts of, Roman busts. Busts of, like, Roman emperors and Greek gods.
Yeah, they're historic pieces of art, and they're all marble busts.
Yes.
And this young woman who has been trying to find a career, she ends up with this talent agency, and they're like, "Okay, you're going to be managing our new band." Secco boys! And she's like, wait, what?
And she's like, has to carry them out
Oh
to
god,
her
she
car.
has a cart that she has to use to put them on because they're not capable of self-propulsion. It's so ridiculous. It's funny.
Yeah.
To me, yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's absurd.
Yes.
And I think it does a good job of... This is not one of those... I felt like it did a good job of knowing its limits, too.
Yeah. I just remember one episode where they're trying to find out their singles are selling. They go out to the countryside where they know they've been selling, and they find that every single one of them is being used in fields to scare off birds. Like from streets. And they see kids throwing them as frisbees.
I'm sort of disappointed we never got a sequel.
Yeah.
Secko Boys, Secco. So the merch for this, it's miniature reproductions of the boss.
Okay.
So those are your figures.
But the one I preferred of the shorts was Galco-chan.
Tell me, Galco-chan.
Galco-chan was...
It's primarily about three teenage girls, and they frequently discussing, bodily functions and biology and...
Well, discussing sex, friendship, and everything in between. But basically, the central conceit of the show is like, people have this weird image of, not Galcos, what are they called? Gangaros.
No, she's not. No,
she's not a
Gangaro. No, she is a Kogal.
Kogal, yes.
Yeah.
Which are the kind of heavily make-upped, dyed blonde hair.
Bleached.
You
can't dye black hair blonde.
Yes. Bleached blonde hair, heavily make-up, very short skirts, dress kind of, put in a simple way, dress kind of slutty, I guess is the way you put it.
I reject that term.
But, I mean, that's the image that they have of them, is that they're all these horrible sluts, basically. And it's like, and this show kind of centers on the parents of like, no, actually she's just a normal teenage girl who likes making friends and is very friendly with people.
Yeah, and she likes to wear makeup, and she likes... she likes fashion, so...
Yeah.
And it's about her, and it's an unlikely group of friends, because then one of the other girls, she's this really short, dweeby girl.
Otaku-chan, I think they call it.
And then, all their names are absurd.
Yeah.
Because her name is Galco.
Yes.
And then the Hime, who is a rich girl who's not very bright.
No.
And it's about them discussing things, frequently sex things.
Yes.
The narrator is Mamiko Noto.
Oh god,
that was a really good idea.
I'd forgotten about that. Because she made them go like, pofu, pofu noises.
I want Mamiko Noto to narrate my life.
I just remembered a skit, because you were talking about how because I was saying they're not actually all this image of...
Oh god, do you remember her older sister?
And it's like, where's my school uniform? Oh, I wore it for my boyfriend one time.
Yeah, and Galco's not happy that Onei-chan did this.
Yes, I remember.
I would say it's a show that has a lot of heart.
Yeah.
And you meet some of the classmates and...
Some of the boys who are
stupid.
Yeah.
Not
very teenage boys.
But they don't... They're stupid, but they're also not...
good-natured.
Malicious.
They're good-natured. And then there's Gothco and...
there's one of the girls in the class is this big buff girl, and...
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
It's got heart. It's really fun. Another one that was big in the doujin scene. I'm
not surprised with that either. Then the other one that I liked was This Boy is a Professional Wizard, which was... So this actually ran in... There was a block for half the season that was for shorts. And this ran in the second half, and the first half ran Tabimachi Late Show. Thinking on it, I'm not sure. I was wondering if maybe it ran more than once a week, but I don't even remember the name of the block, and I tried to do research, and I could not figure this out. So this was the good one. It's the director Sobi Yamamoto, who had also done things like This Boy Can Fight Aliens, and was the poor soul stuck trying to adapt Megane-bu.
Yeah.
Which was a terrible show. Not her fault, but I was a little sad after, because it seemed like she was never going to get a crack again at TV anime, so she did with this, although she hasn't since. And this is a short about, a man who's a wizard in a society where magic is totally normal, and he works in an office. And it's not really that exciting, but he ends up becoming friendly with a bartender who's like, wow, that's pretty cool that that's your job. I can't use magic at all. And they fall in love.
Yeah.
It's only 4 episodes long. Visually, it is just as inventive as most of her stuff is. I don't know this versus her other works, how much she... So with her previous work previous to Maganebu, she did all the animation. I don't remember how much she did of this. But I liked it. I wish she'd make more stuff.
You mentioned Tabimachi Late Show?
So Tabimachi Late Show was a series of episodes that it was a few different stories. And some of them worked and a lot of them didn't. Maybe it was in each episode there was a different story. There were 4 episodes. And I know I liked the first one, which was about this... I don't remember... what was it about? It involved an Italian restaurant and someone who'd gone off to Italy to learn how to cook Italian food and had come back. And I think it's... a boy eats at the place as he's growing up, and then he decides to do the same thing. And the rest of it was bad.
Oh.
Like, there's this weird episode involving 2 girls in high school who have a falling out, and it just... I don't know what they were going for. It was really... They end up having a falling out, and there's, like, this implication that there might be an underlying sexual tension, but then they don't see each other for years, and then they see each other, and I think they insult each other. I don't remember. And I forgot what the other 2 were. Just the rest of it didn't work.
Oh, well. And then there was also Oji-san Marshmallow.
Oji-san and Marshmallow, which is about...
a woman who sexually harasses a man because he looks like a big marshmallow.
Yeah,
and she likes marshmallows.
That's the joke.
That's the joke.
Yep.
Anyway, so for the rest of the season, so we kind of didn't touch this one at the start because...
But this one was big too.
To say it's big, I think this has actually ended up... It wasn't bigger at the time, but I think this has ended up having a longer lasting impact than Erased did.
Yeah, I'd say so for sure.
Which is Konosuba.
Or God's blessings upon this something world.
Yes. It's the one, you should know what Konosuba is.
Aqua.
The one with the hair, and then there's the girl who yells explosion and everything blows up.
Yeah, this is one of those, like, isekai, except sort of broken isekai.
It's isekai, but then it's like pure comedy.
Yeah. For some people, at least. I didn't think it was that funny.
It is very rare I go back to try a show again. Konosuba was one, because I think I missed a bunch of the season for some reason, so I went back to Erased. I went back to Konosuba. I really tried. I just could not get into Konosuba. I know there are people. There are tons of people who just
it's like their favorite crap ever.
Yeah, it is. People love Konosuba.
And they think it's really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
people practically worship some of the characters.
Yeah. Don't get it.
Not us.
I tried. I really tried.
Something else you tried with Dimension W?
Oh, dear.
So Dimension W was part funded by Funimation.
Yeah. It was a kind of cool piece of science fiction.
And it ran on Toonami.
I think so. Cool piece of science fiction about...
Screws.
Detective. Oh, yeah, Screw Detective and a robot girl. And the robot girl's cute. But the detective is such an unremittent arsehole to the robot girl that you just eventually just feel bad for the show and just go, oh, I don't want to watch this anymore.
Yeah, this one, there was a bit of enthusiasm for it out of the gate, and it seemed to tail off pretty quickly.
Well, yeah, because then
he does breakdancing the OP.
Yeah.
People were pissing themselves over that one.
Because it's well animated, it's very colourful, but then like the more you watch it, like, oh, I hate you. And then you stop watching it.
I watched Schwartz's Marken, but not while it was airing. I watched that much more recently, like... Oh, I don't know. Since I can't... No, I'm not sure. I know I have screen caps of it. Anyway, I watched it more recently than it aired. It's okay. Its setting is interesting. So Schwartz's Marken is a spin-off of... What's the name of it? Love...
Alternative.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, you got mechs and you have horrible Lovecraftian creatures and... Yeah. This one takes place in East Germany.
Huh.
So it's an interesting setting.
Yeah.
And the characters, it's East Germany. There's a lot of snow-swept fields, and there's a lot of paranoia about the fact that you are always being watched. You definitely get the sense of an oppressed society.
Sure sounds like East Germany.
Oh, yeah. So that was pretty neat. That's a fairly unusual setting for an anime. I can't think of any others that do that. The actual show itself it's okay. I didn't think it was a waste of time.
Wow. Put that on the back of the box.
I enjoyed it decently. I wouldn't go back and watch it. It had the rare distinction of having... Oh, God, there are some great screen caps I had from this show. One of the characters makes the brilliant decision to sleep with his little sister, who is probably a double agent. And so there's one screen cap I have. It's like, why'd you sleep with her? Because she's your lover? Because she's your little sister? And it's like, yes. Most of the show is not that out there. It's just, there's a bit of political intrigue going on. You have these people fighting mechs, and there's a sense of the rest of society doesn't actually give a crap about us. And also, the West is willing to use us as the front line, so we continue to suffer in our communist paradise. And meanwhile, they don't have to suffer because the incursion is not happening in their countries. It's fine. The setting's neat.
Then there was Luck and Logic.
Oh, I hated this.
Which was based off a phone game. And I remember the time I was still under the mistaken belief that because phone games had no real stories, that anime adaptations of them could be more imaginative and interesting. And then Luck and Logic came out and it was absolute hot garbage.
The worst thing about this was the fact that the little sister of the lead guy, their mom's dead, I think, essentially gets... The shows are trying really hard to refashion her as the mom, and I find that incredibly creepy. Another thing that didn't... Haruchika, which was Haruta and Chika's, excellent adventures. I don't remember. This is about...
Bizarre Adventure. Haruchika's Bizarre Adventure.
That would have been so much better. This was about a high school band. So, of course, everyone's like, oh, Sound Euphonium. Wow, this is much worse visually, and the instruments look like crap. I tried really hard with this. This had the very unique distinction of the two lead characters were childhood friends and have now, I think they've met again because they're in the high school band and they both have the hots for their teacher.
Oh, I remember.
And, and I know some people, the trope of hot for teacher, I know there are people who really dislike that because they really dislike student-teacher relationships. To me, I don't mind characters who have hots for a much older person because I don't think that's unusual. I don't like it when the older character also has the hots for them. That's where I draw the line. The teacher does not have the hots for either of these stupid children, but they're in competition with each other over the teacher. And, this was not a BL. This is just, this kid has a crush on his male teacher. And that's all it was. And there's not much fuss made about that. So I liked that aspect, but it was a very boring show. And neither of the characters is much fun. They're both brats, which I guess isn't surprising given their age, but...
Then we had Active Raid, which was something I was very excited about. Because it's basically director of Code Geass...
Goro Taniguchi,
who I'm a big fan. He's done some stuff I really like. No, not just Code Geass, but also Infinite Revias. It was him basically doing pat labor. Is that how you say it? Basically, because it was just a police force using mechs to fight, fight crime, but also quite mundane in the same way that pat labor is. But it was just boring and not very well written. It was such a downer Active Raid. I felt so bad about how bad it was, about how uninteresting it was, because it wasn't actively awful. It was just uninteresting, and it was just that hurt. Oh.
Hurt me more, baby.
And then there was Pandora and the Crimson Shell, which...
Neither of us watched this because we're not pedophiles.
No, but this is like...
People are going to get mad because I said that, but...
No, it's a pedophile show. It's by the guy...
So it goes to the shell dude there, Shiro... What's his face?
Masamune Shiro.
Who is...
Masamune Shiro.
So, like, a lot of people who've done manga and anime came out of doing porn doujins first. Yet, this guy's done the opposite.
Yeah. He's like, he did the real high-concept science fiction stuff first, and he then used that to then go back and do porn. So...
I will give this show just, the scantest bit of credit. Visually, it's actually less creepy and unsettling than the manga it's based on is.
Okay.
Like, it is not quite as creepy in its depiction of a prepubescent female body as the manga. Which is kind of, yeah. Anyway.
And finally...
So, we just talked about porny shit.
Precure!
Let's talk about Precure. So, Maho Sakai Precure came out this season, also known as Maho Girls Precure, although I will maintain that it really should just be called Magic Users Precure, because that's what Maho Sakai means. Or Witch Precure.
Which Precure is your favorite?
I watched 10 episodes of this. Oh, there's so much I like about it, but it's not very well written or plotted.
Oh.
In it, there's a girl, and she meets this other girl who's a witch, or she's training to be a magic user, but she's not very good at it, and she ends up taking, I forget how or why, the non-magic girl back to the magic world, and they're basically at Harry Potter's school, and they're also Precure, and, the magic school's a lot of fun, and I like the characters a bunch. Oh, fun fact, Yui Horie voiced, was it Yui or was it Ai Hirano voiced one of the girls? I can't remember which. And I liked them a lot, and I like their interactions a lot, but the plotting is really messy in what I saw of it.
Yeah.
So, I wish it was actually good, but it's not. So that was the season. We thought this was going to be a short episode, but maybe it's not.
We talked for Rakugo like 20 minutes. So.
Yeah, true. So what was your favorite show? Oh, I bet I'm going to take a wild guess.
Take a wild guess. It's the one that I said was maybe one of the best anime of the entire decade.
Old Man and Marshmallow.
Yeah, no, it's Galco-chan, yeah.
Yeah.
It's Rakugo.
Yeah, mine's probably Rakugo, although Grimgar is definitely a close second.
My close second is Galco. Not really.
That is... Oh. So what is your close?
It is it is a long distance second, shall we say.
Okay.
Rakugo is just such an incredible anime.
Yeah, go watch it, folks.
Yeah.
Especially if you're someone who would like to watch something that isn't teenagers running around type shows, which there's a lot of.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And that's it.
I know what we need to go out on.
SEKKO
BOYS. Sekko!